Bioshock Infinite is one of the most outstanding games I have played in recent memory. This is due not to the gameplay, but rather the story, which is possibly the best and most cleverly told narrative I have ever seen in the medium. Don't worry, I won't spoil anything, but the story blew me away. It's mind-bending, exciting, shocking, and emotionally impactful. It also addresses issues such as racism and religion, all in all making for a fairly sophisticated narrative. Part of what makes the delivery of the narrative so great is Elizabeth. This is the girl your character Booker supposedly has to save, and you spend the majority of your adventure with her. Not leading her or escorting her, but with her. This character is pretty groundbreaking as video game characters go. She seems so alive and expressive, with her animations, writing, voice acting, and in-game roles and actions being meticulously executed. Being immersed in the relationship between Booker and Elizabeth is unlike anything I've experienced in a game. The character development is particularly compelling. Never before have I cared so much about an NPC. Her role in the gameplay works well too. Her AI adds to what makes her so lifelike. For example, she often predicts where you're going and runs ahead of you. She aids you in battle and in exploring the world, through opening tears into other worlds to add certain elements to a battlefield, throwing you things like ammo, money and health, unlocking doors, pointing out collectibles and so on. She never seemed to get in the way or be bothersome, and you never have to worry about where she's at or what she's doing, aside from in a narrative sense. Speaking of gameplay, aside from gun battles, the game mostly consists of a little exploring and finding items and bits of exposition, with some mild RPG elements. The battles themselves can be fantastic. In some situations you'll be gliding around on sky rails, which are very fun by the way, gliding on and off them and slamming enemies off little airships while gunning down swarms of varied foes and using some interesting powers called Vigors. These things, combined with Elizabeth's role in battles and generally hectic situations, provide for some very satisfying and adrenaline-inducing moments. However, in some ways the combat falls a little flat. Many of the battle situations do not involve sky rails or many interesting tears, resulting in it devolving into standing around shooting a bunch of guys and using the Vigors to spice things up a bit. But then that makes the moments where the sky rails really come into play more special. The guns are not as imaginative as some of those seen in the original Bioshock, and were it not for the other aspects of combat, gunplay could easily get a little boring. On normal mode I found the difficulty was also an issue. I never died once. I have no idea what even happens when you die. Of course, you could just play on a harder difficulty, but the ridiculous final battle, in which the difficulty suddenly spikes due to a piece of scenery you have to protect from a seemingly unending swarm of enemies, would be an issue. Speaking of the final battle, although the game features a nice variety of enemy types, it features no real boss battles. This strikes me as odd, and I think the addition of boss battles would have done well to shake things up a little. Now let's talk about the world of Columbia. Your introduction to the city provokes both awe and uneasy suspicion. Before the action kicks off, the game does a marvellous job of immersing you in this very intriguing world and society. After a strange entry into the city, I found myself agorp at the beauty and delightful details of my first moments exploring the city. This section of the game is a great example of how to immerse a player in a world. It's all about the details. This period of immersion, awe, serenity and delight is quickly heavily juxtaposed by some shocking events, and the bright and beautiful city provides juxtaposition to some grim and horrific environments later in the game. Speaking of horror, I'm not usually a fan of it, but the way Bioshock Infinite handles it is brilliant. It has a spot-on balance of horror and non-horror, making the horror effective without making it overbearing. There is one area in particular that is horror-heavy, and something I like about said area is that it's not just the atmosphere and the things that happen in the area that make it scary. It's the horror of what's being unravelled in the narrative at the same time. And this blend of amazing storytelling that works so well with the gameplay and atmosphere is what makes Bioshock Infinite such an exciting addition to the medium of video games. It's on par with the likes of Half-Life 2 in many ways. Heck, it even takes what the character of Alex Vance brought to that game and makes it even better. Bioshock Infinite is a must-buy for anyone interested in an outstanding example of how storytelling and character development should be handled in AAA games. I hope Bioshock is a glimpse at what will be achieved in games as the medium grows and evolves.
make you so sure about it. God only knows what I'd be without you.